The stars had always been silent. For 300 years, humanity spread across the galaxy like seeds in the wind. They built cities on distant moons. They made homes on planets that burned with red sunlight. They learned that the universe was vast and cold and mostly empty. But they never stopped reaching for more. Admiral Kang Jinho stood on the bridge of the UEF Iron Dawn and watched the stars through the main viewport. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had served in the fleet for 40 years. He had seen wars between human colonies. He had watched pirates burn cargo ships. He had buried friends in the cold vacuum of space, but nothing had prepared him for what was about to come. The Iron Dawn was the flagship of the United Earth Fleet. It was a massive warship, almost 2 kilometers long, with enough firepower to crack a small moon. Right now, it floated in the quiet darkness of Sector 7, running routine patrols along the border of human space. Lieutenant Park Yuna sat at the communications station. She was young, barely 25, with sharp eyes and quick hands. She had joined the fleet because her father had been a pilot. He died when she was 12, his ship destroyed by raiders near the outer colonies. She wanted to protect others the way he had tried to protect them. A light blinked on her console, then another. Then a cascade of signals flooded her screen. "Admiral," she said, her voice steady but tight. "We are receiving a transmission. It is not human." Kang turned from the viewport. His eyes narrowed. Non-human transmissions were rare. Humanity had made contact with several alien species over the centuries. Most were peaceful traders or distant observers who wanted nothing to do with the young human race. But this signal was different. It was desperate. "Put it through," Kang ordered. The bridge speakers crackled. Then a voice filled the room. It was high and musical, like wind chimes in a storm. But beneath the beauty, there was fear. Raw, terrible fear. "This is Elder Elith of the Valari Concord. We send this message to all who can hear. Our world is dying. The Dominion has come. They burn our cities. They kill our children. We have no weapons. We have no warships. We have only hope. Please, if anyone can hear us, please help." The message repeated, again and again, the same words, the same desperate plea. Yuna looked at the Admiral. Her hands were shaking slightly. "Sir, I have traced the signal. It comes from the Valari homeworld. It is 3 weeks away at maximum speed." Kang knew the Valari. Everyone in the fleet knew them. They were a gentle species with glowing skin that changed colors with their emotions. They had made first contact with humanity 50 years ago. They traded art and music and stories. They had no army, no police, no weapons of any kind. Their civilization had survived for 10,000 years through peace and cooperation. They were everything humanity had once dreamed of becoming. And now, they were being slaughtered. "What do we know about the Dominion?" Kang asked quietly. Commander Shin Nari stepped forward. She was the tactical officer, a woman with a sharp mind and a scar across her left cheek from a battle long ago. "The Dominion is an empire, sir. They control 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. They have conquered over 60 species. They take what they want and destroy what they do not need. Their fleet numbers in the thousands. No one has ever successfully fought them." "And the Valari have nothing they want?" "No, sir. The Valari homeworld has few resources. The Dominion is simply cleaning them out, removing a species they consider weak and useless." Kang closed his eyes. He thought of his grandmother. She had raised him on a small farm in Korea, back on Earth. She was a simple woman with rough hands and a kind heart. She used to tell him stories at night, stories about heroes and monsters and the choices that made them different. One story stayed with him his whole life. It was about a young man who found a wounded bird in the forest. The bird could not fly. It could not fight. It had nothing to offer, but the young man carried it home and healed it anyway. When others asked him why he wasted his time, he simply said, "Because it needed help, and I could give it." Kang opened his eyes. "Lieutenant Park," he said, "open a channel to Earth Command. Priority 1. Yuna nodded and began working her console. Within minutes, the face of Fleet Marshal Bayek Hyejin appeared on the main screen. She was an old woman, nearly 80, but her eyes were still fierce. She had unified Earth's militaries decades ago. She had ended the colony wars. She was the most respected figure in human history. "Admiral Kang," she said, "I have already received the Valari signal. The entire fleet has. What is your assessment?" Kang straightened his shoulders. "Ma'am, the Valari are being exterminated. They have no military. They cannot fight back. Every other species in the galaxy has ignored their call for help." "And what do you propose?" Kang looked at his crew. He saw Yuna at her station, her eyes wet but determined. He saw Nari standing tall, ready for any order. He saw the young officers and the old veterans all watching him with the same question in their eyes. "What kind of people are we?" "I propose we answer them," Kang said simply. "I propose we fight." There was a long silence. Fleet Marshal Bayek studied him through the screen. Then slowly, she nodded. "The Dominion has never been challenged," she said. "They have more ships, more weapons, more soldiers. If we do this, we may lose everything. Do you understand that, Admiral?" "I do." "Ma'am? And you still want to fight for strangers who can never repay us?" Kang thought of his grandmother. He thought of the wounded bird. He thought of 63 species conquered and destroyed because no one was willing to stand up. "Someone has to," he said quietly. "If not us, then who? If not now, then when? The Valari asked for mercy. The least we can do is answer." Fleet Marshal Bayek was silent for a long moment. Then she smiled, and for a moment she looked young again. "Then we answer," she said. "All of us, together." She ended the transmission. Kang turned to his crew. "Set course for Valari space," he ordered. "Maximum speed, and send a message to every human ship in range. Tell them humanity is going to war." The Iron Dawn's engines roared to life. The stars streaked past the viewport as the ship jumped to faster-than-light speed. In the darkness of space, a single human warship raced toward the unknown. Behind it, hundreds more would soon follow. The Valari had asked for help, and for the first time in galactic history, someone answered. Earth had not seen such chaos in 100 years. The great cities that covered the planet buzzed with activity as news of the Valari spread across every screen and speaker. People stopped in the streets to watch the alien transmission play again and again. They saw the burning cities. They heard the desperate cries. They watched as an innocent species begged the universe for help. And the universe, as always, did not answer. But humanity was not the universe. In the capital city of Seoul, the Emergency Council gathered in a massive chamber deep beneath the surface. This was where humanity's greatest decisions were made. War and peace, life and death, the future of the entire species. Council Chair Lee Sora stood at the center of the room. She was 50 years old, with iron-gray hair and a face that showed every difficult choice she had ever made. She had been a diplomat before she became chair. She had spent her life trying to find peaceful solutions to impossible problems. But there was no peaceful solution here. "We have received confirmation," she said to the assembled council members. "The Dominion fleet numbers over 2,000 warships. They have surrounded the Valari homeworld. At their current rate of destruction, the Valari species will be extinct within 3 weeks." Senator Choi Sun-woo rose from his seat. He was a large man with a loud voice and a face red with anger. "And what exactly are we supposed to do about it? We have 400 ships, 400. The Dominion will crush us like insects." "So we should do nothing?" asked Senator Han Mira quietly. She was small and old, but her eyes were sharp. We should sit here and watch an entire species die? We should protect our own people, Sunwoo shouted. The Valari are not our responsibility. We owe them nothing. If we attack the Dominion, we bring their wrath upon ourselves. Is that what you want? Human cities burning? Human children dying? The chamber erupted in arguments. Some senators agreed with Sunwoo. Others called him a coward. Voices rose and fell like waves in a storm. Sora let them argue. She watched them fight and debate and fear. She understood their fear. She felt it herself, deep in her bones. The Dominion was a monster that had never been defeated. Challenging them was madness by any logical measure, but sometimes, she thought, madness was the only sane choice. A door at the back of the chamber opened. The arguing stopped instantly. Every head turned to watch as Fleet Marshal Bayek Hyejin walked slowly down the aisle. She was ancient. Her body was bent with age, and she walked with a cane carved from dark wood, but her eyes burned with a fire that had never dimmed. She had led armies. She had ended wars. She had built the United Earth Fleet from nothing. And now, at the end of her long life, she had come to ask for one more battle. "May I speak?" she asked quietly. Sora nodded. "The floor is yours, Marshal." Beck walked to the center of the chamber. She pressed a button on her cane, and holographic images appeared in the air around her. They showed Valari cities reduced to rubble, refugee ships torn apart by Dominion weapons, bodies floating in the darkness of space, children with glowing skin, their light fading as life left them. "This is what the Dominion does," Bayek said. "This is what they have always done. They find a species weaker than themselves, and they destroy it. Not for resources, not for territory, simply because they can, simply because no one has ever told them no." Senator Sunwoo shifted in his seat. "With respect, Marshal, that is not our problem. The galaxy is cruel. We cannot save everyone." "You are correct," Beck said. "The galaxy is cruel. It has always been cruel. Species rise and fall, civilizations burn and are forgotten. That is the way of things." She paused. Her old eyes swept across the chamber. "But we are human, and humans have never accepted the way of things." She pressed another button. New images appeared. Human history. The wars and plagues and disasters that had nearly destroyed them. The famines and floods and fires. And then, rising from the ashes, the cities and ships and dreams that had carried them to the stars. "We did not build these warships to hide behind them," Beck said. "We built them because the universe is dangerous, and we refused to be victims. We built them because we knew that someday, somewhere, someone would need help that only we could give." She pointed her cane at the images of the dying Valari. "That day has come. Those someones are dying right now, as we sit here and debate." "What about our own people?" Sunwoo demanded. "What happens when the Dominion comes for us?" "The Dominion will come for us eventually," Beck said calmly. "Today, tomorrow, 100 years from now. It does not matter. They will come because that is what they do. The only question is whether we face them as the species that stood by and did nothing while innocents died, or as the species that stood up and said enough." The chamber was silent. Sora looked at the faces around her. She saw fear. She saw doubt. But beneath it all, she saw something else. Pride, determination, the stubborn human refusal to accept defeat. "We will vote," she announced, "all in favor of mobilizing the fleet to defend the Valari homeworld." Hands rose, one by one. Senator Han Mira raised hers first, then others followed. Young senators and old, men and women, hawks and doves. They raised their hands because they were afraid, and they raised them anyway. Even Senator Sunwoo, his face pale, slowly lifted his hand. The vote was unanimous. Sora felt something in her chest. Relief and terror mixed together. They had chosen. Now they had to live with it. "Marshal Beck," she said, "the fleet is yours. Bring our people home." Beck nodded. She looked older than ever, but also somehow stronger. "I will go with them," she said quietly. "An old woman has no business asking young soldiers to die unless she is willing to die beside them." Within hours, the call went out across human space. Every ship capable of faster-than-light travel was ordered to mobilize. Cargo ships were fitted with weapons. Mining vessels became bombers. Passenger liners became medical ships. Civilian pilots volunteered by the thousands. Captain O. Minho of the destroyer. Busan's Fury watched his crew prepare for battle. They were young, most of them. They had families back home. They had dreams and fears and hopes, and they were all going to fly into the heart of an empire that had never been beaten. "Are we crazy?" asked his first officer, Lieutenant Yoon Ji-soo. Minho smiled. "Probably," he said. "But the Valari asked for help. And we are human. Helping is what we do." The fleet gathered. 387 warships from 12 colony worlds. It was the largest human armada ever assembled. It was also, by any reasonable measure, not nearly enough. But they went anyway. Because sometimes the right choice and the smart choice are not the same. And humans, when forced to choose, had always chosen to do what was right, even if it killed them. The Valari homeworld was a beautiful planet. It had purple oceans and forests that glowed silver in the moonlight. Its cities were made of crystal and light, built by a species that valued beauty above all else. For 10,000 years, those cities had stood in peace. Now they burned. Warlord Thaxel the Unbroken stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Hunger. He was massive, even by Dominion standards. His gray skin was covered with scars from 60 years of conquest. He had destroyed civilizations. He had broken species. He had never, not once, known defeat. Around the planet, his fleet hung in space like a swarm of metal locusts. 2,000 warships, each one bristling with weapons. They had already killed 9 billion Valari. Only 3 million remained, hiding in caves and ruins, waiting for death. Thaxel watched the planet burn and felt nothing but satisfaction. The Valari were weak. They had no weapons, no army, no will to fight. They deserved to die. Then his communications officer spoke. "Warlord, we detect incoming vessels. Many vessels." Thaxel turned. "Show me." The tactical display lit up with hundreds of dots. They were moving fast, faster than Thaxel had ever seen ships move, and they were heading straight for his fleet. "What species?" he demanded. "Scanning now, Warlord." The officer paused. "They are human." Thaxel laughed. It was a deep, ugly sound. "Humans? Those children? They have barely left their home system. They have 400 ships at most. This is a joke. 387 ships confirmed, Warlord. They are not slowing down." "Then they are fools." Thaxel settled into his command chair. "Open a channel. I will give them one chance to run." His voice boomed across space. "Human fleet, this is Warlord Thaxel of the Dominion. Turn back now, or share the fate of the Valari. You cannot win. You cannot even survive. This is your only warning." For a long moment there was silence. Then a human voice replied. It was calm and steady, the voice of an old woman who had seen too much to be afraid. "This is Fleet Marshal Beck Hijin of the United Earth Fleet. We received the Valari's call for help. We are here to answer it. We will not turn back." Thaxel leaned forward. "You will die. All of you. For a species that cannot help you. For a planet that has nothing to offer. Why?" "Because they asked," said the old woman. "And because we could." The channel went dead. Thaxel stared at the screen for a moment. Then he shook his massive head. "Madness," he muttered. "Pure madness. All batteries target the human fleet. Destroy them all." The Dominion fleet opened fire, and then the humans showed him what madness really looked like. Admiral Kang Jinho watched the wall of energy coming toward his fleet, thousands of weapons firing at once, enough firepower to crack a moon. "All ships," he said calmly, "execute scatter protocol." The human fleet exploded outward in every direction. Ships dove and twisted and spun in patterns that should have been impossible. They moved like a swarm of angry bees, chaotic and unpredictable. The Dominion targeting systems, designed to track orderly formations, could not follow them. 90% of the first volley missed entirely. Captain Ominho pushed his destroyer to its limits. The Busan's fury screamed through space, dodging fire, returning shots at every opportunity. His crew worked in perfect harmony, each person doing their job without hesitation. "Target their communication arrays," ordered Commander Shin Nari. "Blind them." The humans had studied the Dominion for years. They knew their weaknesses. They knew that Dominion ships depended on central command. Cut off the head, and the body would stumble. Wolfpack tactics. It was a strategy humans had used since ancient times. Small units, working together, attacking from every direction at once. Never staying still, never fighting fair. The Dominion had conquered 63 species. None of them had fought like this. Thaxel watched his fleet begin to crumble. Ship after ship fell to the swarming human vessels. His orderly battle lines dissolved into chaos. His commanders screamed for orders, but there were no orders for this. There was no strategy to fight an enemy that moved like water and struck like lightning. "What are they doing?" he roared. "How are they doing this?" His tactical officer shook his head. "They are flying at acceleration rates that should kill them. Their bodies should break, their ships should tear apart, but they keep coming." Humans, Thaxel realized with growing horror, were not like other species. Other species valued their lives. Other species retreated when the odds turned against them. Other species knew when to surrender. Humans did not surrender. They attacked harder. The battle raged for hours, then days, then weeks. The Dominion lost 400 ships in the first hour, 600 by the end of the first day, 1,000 by the end of the first week. But humans died too. The destroyer Silver River was the first to fall, then the cruiser New Tokyo, then dozens more. Human ships burned in the darkness. Human soldiers died in the vacuum. Lieutenant Park Yuna watched friends disappear in flashes of light. She kept working her station, tears running down her face. There was no time to mourn. There was only the mission. Admiral Kang stood on the bridge of the Iron Dawn as his ship took hit after hit. Fires broke out in the lower decks. The hull groaned under the pressure, but he did not order a retreat. He could not. On the planet below, 3 million Valari huddled in the darkness and watched the sky light up with battle. They did not understand what they were seeing. They had never seen war. They had never seen violence on this scale, but they understood sacrifice. They understood that strangers were dying for them, and they wept. By the 11th day, the Dominion fleet had lost 1,500 ships. Thaxel's armada, the greatest force the galaxy had ever seen, was being torn apart by a species half its age and a tenth its size. Thaxel sat in his command chair and watched his empire crumble. His hands shook. His breath came in short gasps. He had conquered 63 species. He had never known fear. Now he knew nothing else. The human fleet kept coming, battered, broken, bleeding, but still coming. Because that was what humans did. They fought for what was right, even when it hurt, even when it cost everything, even when no one asked them to. The Dominion had ruled the galaxy through fear. They had believed that fear was the ultimate weapon. They were wrong. Hope was stronger. Love was stronger. The simple, stubborn belief that some things were worth dying for. The humans proved it with every ship they sacrificed, with every life they gave. And the galaxy watched in silence as everything it thought it knew about power was proven wrong. The carrier's soul's promise was dying. Fire consumed its lower decks. Its engines had failed 3 days ago. Its weapons were exhausted, but it still flew, held together by desperate repairs and the sheer will of its crew. Captain Yoon Tae-hyun stood on the burning bridge and watched the Dominion superweapon power up. It was a massive station, larger than a moon, designed to destroy entire planets. If it fired, every human ship in range would be vaporized. "Captain," said his first officer, blood dripping from a wound on her head, "we cannot stop it. We do not have the firepower." Tae-hyun looked at his crew. They were exhausted. Many were wounded. Some were barely old enough to vote. They had followed him into hell without hesitation. They deserved to go home. But if that weapon fired, no one would go home. "Open a channel to the fleet," he said quietly. Admiral Kang's voice crackled through the speakers. "Captain Yoon, report." "Admiral, the superweapon will fire in approximately 10 minutes. We cannot destroy it from this distance." Tae-hyun took a deep breath. "But if we get close enough, if we ram it with everything we have, we can take it out." There was silence on the other end. "Tae-hyun," Kang said, using his first name for the first time in years, "that is a suicide mission. You will not survive." "I know, sir. Your crew, my crew agrees. We took a vote." Tae-hyun smiled, though no one could see it. "Humans are strange that way. We vote on our own deaths." Another pause. When Kang spoke again, his voice was thick with emotion. "Then go with honor, Captain. We will not forget you." "Just win, sir. That is all I ask." Tae-hyun closed the channel. He looked at his crew one last time. Young faces, scared faces, brave faces. "All ahead full," he ordered. "Ramming speed." The Soul's Promise surged forward. The Dominion station tried to destroy it, but the ship was too fast, too close. In the final seconds, Tae-hyun opened one last transmission. Not to the fleet, to Earth, to his daughter, who was only 8 years old. "Minji," he said softly, "I am sorry I cannot come home. Tell your mother I love her. Tell her I was brave. Tell her—" The Soul's Promise struck the superweapon at full speed. The explosion lit up space for 1,000 kilometers. The superweapon broke apart, its energy core detonating in a cascade of light. The Soul's Promise ceased to exist, along with its crew of 4,000 souls. But the human fleet survived, and they kept fighting. By the end of the 11th day, the Dominion fleet was shattered. Of the 2,000 ships that had surrounded the Valari homeworld, fewer than 400 remained. They drifted in space, damaged and demoralized, their crews broken by a battle they had never expected to lose. Warlord Thaxel sat in his command chair aboard the crippled Eternal Hunger. The lights flickered. The air smelled of smoke and blood. His guards were dead. His commanders had fled. He was alone. Heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. Then the door exploded inward, and human Marines poured onto the bridge. They moved like wolves, fast and silent and deadly. In seconds, they had secured the room. An old woman walked in behind them. She moved slowly, leaning on a dark wooden cane. Her face was lined with age, but her eyes burned with something ancient and fierce. Fleet Marshal Bayek Hyojin had come to accept the surrender personally. Thaxel looked at her. He tried to feel anger, but he was too tired, too defeated. He could only feel confusion. "Why?" he asked. His voice was hoarse. "I do not understand. The Valari are nothing. They have no weapons, no resources, no strategic value. They could not pay you. They could not help you. Why did you sacrifice so much for creatures who cannot repay you?" Beck studied him for a long moment. Then she sat down on a broken console, her old bones creaking with the effort. "You truly do not understand," she said. "That is perhaps the saddest thing about your entire empire." Explain it to me." Beck was quiet for a while. When she spoke, her voice was soft. "Humanity almost destroyed itself once. Many times, actually. We fought wars over land, over resources, over ideas. We burned our own cities. We killed our own children. We came so close to extinction that some historians believe we should not have survived. And yet you did. We did. Because in our darkest moments, there were always people who chose to help others. Not for payment, not for power. Simply because helping was right." She met Thaxel's eyes. "That is what separates civilization from savagery. Not technology, not strength, the willingness to sacrifice for those who cannot fight back." Thaxel shook his head. "That is weakness. The universe rewards only the strong." "The universe rewards nothing," Beck replied. "It is cold and empty, and does not care about any of us. We give meaning to our own existence through the choices we make. You chose to conquer and destroy. We chose to protect and save." She stood up slowly. "Look around you, warlord. Look at your broken fleet, your dead soldiers, your shattered empire. Tell me again which choice was stronger." Thaxel had no answer. Beck signaled to her Marines. "Take him to the detention block. He will be tried for his crimes." As the soldiers dragged him away, Thaxel turned for one last look at the old woman. "What will you do now?" he asked. "The Valari are still broken. Your fleet is half destroyed. You have won nothing." Beck smiled. It was a tired smile, but also somehow peaceful. "We have won everything," she said. "We have proven that mercy is not weakness, that compassion is not foolishness, that even in a galaxy ruled by monsters, there can be heroes." Her eyes grew distant. "Perhaps that is not much. Perhaps it will all be forgotten in 100 years. But today, right now, we did what was right, and that is enough." The Marines took Thaxel away. Beck stood alone on the ruined bridge of the enemy flagship. Outside the shattered viewports, the wreckage of battle drifted slowly through space. Human ships and Dominion ships tangled together in death. She thought of Tae-hyun and his crew, of the 63,000 humans who would never go home, of all the young lives cut short so that strangers might live. Was it worth it? She did not know. She would probably never know. But she believed it was. She had to believe it was, because if she did not, then all those deaths meant nothing. And Baek Hyejin refused to let that happen. She turned and walked slowly off the bridge. There was still work to do, a planet to save, a people to heal, a galaxy to change. The battle was over. The real fight was just beginning. The Valari homeworld was silent. The guns had stopped firing. The ships had stopped burning. For the first time in weeks, there was peace. Admiral Kang Jinho walked across the scorched surface of what had once been a great city. Crystal towers lay shattered around him. Streets that had glowed with gentle light were now black with ash. Gardens that had bloomed for centuries were nothing but dust. But in the ruins there was movement. Human engineers were setting up shelters. Human doctors were treating the wounded. Human soldiers were standing guard against any remaining threats. They worked in silence, their faces tired but determined. Kang had not slept in 3 days. He had lost count of how many friends he had buried. The Iron Dawn had survived, but barely. Half its crew was dead or wounded. The ship itself would need months of repairs before it could fly again. But they had won. He still could not quite believe it. 400 human ships against 2,000 Dominion warships. It should have been impossible. It should have been suicide. And yet, here they were. Lieutenant Park Yuna appeared at his side. She looked as exhausted as he felt, but there was something new in her eyes, a quiet pride that had not been there before. "Admiral," she said softly, "the Valari Elder is asking to see you." Kang nodded. He followed Yuna through the ruins to a makeshift shelter where the surviving Valari had gathered. There were not many of them, 3 million out of 12 billion, the last remnants of a civilization that had stood for 10,000 years. Elder Ileth waited at the entrance. The Valari was tall and thin, with skin that glowed a soft blue in the dim light. That blue color, Kang had learned, meant sorrow, deep, overwhelming sorrow. But as Ileth saw the human admiral approach, the blue began to mix with other colors, gold, silver, white. The Valari colors of hope and gratitude and something that could not be translated into human words. "Admiral Kang Jinho," Ileth said. The voice was musical but heavy with emotion. "I do not know how to thank you. We have nothing to give. Our cities are gone. Our people are dead. Our culture is broken. We have nothing." Kang looked at the ancient being before him. So different from humanity in every way. Different body, different mind, different history, and yet asking the same question that every grateful person throughout history had asked. How do I repay kindness I can never match? "You do not need to give us anything," Kang said gently. "That is not why we came." "Then why?" Ileth's colors shifted to deep purple, the color of confusion. "Your people died for us. 63,000 of your children will never see home again. Your ships are broken, your resources are spent, and we can offer nothing in return. No technology, no wealth, no military alliance. We are useless to you." Kang thought about the question. He thought about Tae-hyun and his crew, flying into certain death without hesitation. He thought about Fleet Marshal Bayek, an 80-year-old woman standing on a battlefield because she believed leaders should share the risks they asked of others. He thought about all the young soldiers who had volunteered for this mission, knowing they might not survive. Why? "You asked for help," he said finally. "That is why we came. Not for payment, not for power, not for strategy. You asked, and we answered." "But why would you answer? No one else did. Every other species in the galaxy ignored our call." Kang looked up at the sky. Through the smoke and ash, he could see the stars, cold and distant and indifferent. "Humanity has a long memory," he said. "We remember what it was like to be alone, to face dangers that seemed impossible, to cry for help and hear nothing but silence." He met Ileth's strange, beautiful eyes. "We could not save ourselves back then, but we remembered the feeling, the hopelessness, the fear, and we promised ourselves that if we ever had the power to help others, we would use it." Ileth was silent for a long moment. Then slowly the elder reached out a thin, glowing hand. "We do not know your customs," Ileth said, "but I have seen your people do this. It means something to you." Kang took the offered hand. Ileth's skin was warm and it pulsed with gentle light. "It means connection," Kang said. "It means we are no longer strangers." They stood there in the ruins, human and Valari, holding hands as the stars wheeled overhead. Around them, soldiers and survivors worked together. Aliens and humans, side by side, building something new from the ashes of the old. News of the battle spread across the galaxy. At first, no one believed it. The Dominion was invincible. Everyone knew that. The stories must be exaggerated. The humans must have had some secret weapon. But the stories were not exaggerated. And there was no secret weapon. Just humans. Ordinary, fragile, short-lived humans who had chosen to fight for strangers because it was right. The Dominion fractured. Its subject races, seeing that their masters could be defeated, rose in rebellion. Within a year, the great empire that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries began to crumble. Other civilizations sent messages to Earth. Some asked for trade, some asked for alliance, some simply asked how humanity had found the courage to do what no one else would do. The answer was always the same. Because they asked, because we could, because some things are worth dying for. Years later, a monument was built on the Valari homeworld. It stood in the center of the rebuilt capital, a pillar of crystal and steel that reached toward the stars. On it were carved the names of every human who had died in the battle. 63,000 names written in light that would never fade. At the base of the monument, there was a simple inscription in both human and Valari languages. They came as strangers. They left as family. They answered when no one else would. Admiral Kong, now old and gray, visited the monument once before he died. He stood before the names of friends he had lost and soldiers he had never met. He read each name slowly, remembering. Then he looked up at the sky where human and Valari ships now flew together, and he smiled. The universe was still cold, still empty, still indifferent. But it was a little less dark than it had been before, because humanity had answered, and that answer echoed across the stars, a promise to every species who would ever face destruction alone. You are not alone. You were never alone. Ask for help, and someone will come, not because they have to, not because they will benefit, but because that is what it means to be human. That is what it means to be alive. And that is the only answer that ever truly mattered.